In today's video, I'm going to be repairing the O2 sensor, which is the Bank 2 Sensor 2 in my 2005 Honda Pilot. If you want to skip ahead to the removal and installation, I recommend you do that now. And if you want to see a couple store-bought and home remedies to try and repair it, stick around for a few minutes. It's a quick shot of the mileage so you can see that I'm actually driving the vehicle. And the first thing I'm going to try is this Duralube Severe Catalytic and Exhaust Treatment. Now, I'm not holding out too much hope for the O2 sensor, although I am throwing a code that indicates the catalytic converter is also below efficiency, so I'm hoping that maybe this will help it out. So to use this product, all you do is dump the entire bottle into your gas tank, which should have approximately 50 to 75 liters, and then you take your vehicle for a drive. Now, I'd say the only way that this product will do much to help your catalytic converter is if it's just a fouled up catalytic converter. If you have any mechanical damage, there is no way this product will fix it. Now all I gotta do is start the vehicle up and go for a drive. There's no indication on how far you have to drive, but needless to say, I emptied the tank completely and then filled the tank again, and it didn't do anything for me. So there you can see the check engine light is still on, and for a product that cost $20, I didn't have too much hope that it would solve my issue. I haven't completely written this product off as useless since I've changed my O2 sensor. The P420 code for a low catalytic converter efficiency has not come back. So I don't know, maybe it did something. It has the potential to work. The next thing I tried before replacing the O2 sensor was to clean the old one using gas and a Scotch-Brite pad. So you can see me here removing it from the catalytic converter. So if you have this same code, Bank2 refers to the catalytic converter on the radiator side, and Sensor 2 is the sensor after the catalytic converter. So you can see the O2 sensor there. And in fact, there's not too much carbon buildup on this thing, so if you did have a lot of carbon buildup, this gasoline thing might work, but I'm not holding out much hope. Now, if you take a close look at this, you can actually see my O2 sensor is bent or melted or something, so not entirely sure what happened to it, but there's definitely some mechanical damage to this thing. Now, before cleaning the O2 sensor itself, I'm just going to use some of this electrical contact cleaner to clean the grime out of the electrical connectors. And now, as stated, I'm going to let this O2 sensor soak in gasoline and use a Scotch-Brite pad just to clean it up and get the carbon off of it. So, pretty simple. Put some gas in a mason jar and toss the O2 sensor in just like that. After it's soaked for about 20 minutes, I just took a Scotch-Brite pad and gave it a good scrub to get any of the carbon buildup or any other junk that's on it off. And then I'm going to throw it into the gasoline and let it sit overnight. So now that it's sat overnight, I'm going to take the Scotch-Brite pad one more time and just scuff it up, make sure that any carbon buildup that remained behind is completely removed. And then I'm going to use some compressed air just to help dry it off. Here's another quick shot of the bend or melt, or I don't know what happened to this thing, but it's definitely damaged. I think that maybe if you just had a O2 sensor that was fouled up with carbon, this gas trick might work, but if you got something actually bent, it is not going to work. So there you go. I'm not throwing the same code, I'm throwing a new code. Suffice it to say, the gas did not fix it, it just broke it some other way. So here's the real fix. I got an NTK oxygen sensor from Part Source. It is part 24259 and it cost $65. If you go to Honda and pick up the Honda branded one, it's going to run about $165, so it's almost exactly $100 more. I found it easiest to start from the top and work your way down. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just reach down low and remove the electrical connector and take that off first. So there you go. O2 sensor is now disconnected from the wires. The next thing you're going to do is there's one bolt that holds in the O2 sensor wiring harness to the engine, and it requires a 10 millimeter socket. I found it easiest to use a deep socket with a small extension and a ratchet, and then once it was loose, just take it out by hand. And once it's out, the last thing we're going to do is use the O2 sensor socket that I've got to remove the O2 sensor. Now this thing cost about 25 bucks from the local Canadian Tire store. I don't love it. And basically it's a 22 millimeter socket with a groove cut out so it goes around the wire, and then you can put a 1/2 inch breaker bar into it. So as mentioned, you just slide it around the wire and onto the O2 sensor. Then you use the breaker bar to crack it loose. And since I've already had this one out, it comes out no problem. If you're having issues, I recommend you do it when the engine's a little bit warm, and I used some WD-40 as well as some liquid wrench on it. And again, engine warm, it came out pretty easily the first time, but now that this one's been out once before, it comes out no problem the second time. So these things are non-refundable, so before I open the plastic wrapper, I'm just going to make sure that everything looks the same, and obviously it's a perfect match for the OEM part. So for the installation, I found it easiest to start from the bottom and work your way up. So we're going to be putting the O2 sensor in first, then the mounting bracket, and then lastly plugging it in. And you can see on the threads it actually comes with some anti-seize compound. So the process for this is to just go hand tight at first until it makes contact with the catalytic converter, and then the installation instructions that came with the O2 sensor indicate that you do a 3/4 turn, and that's as tight as it needs to go. It doesn't provide a actual torque spec with it. And I'm going to use this same O2 sensor socket. The issue I have with this thing is that it's just, you can't get a good turn in there. I ended up using an adjustable wrench just to give me a little bit more room to fit the socket in, as well as the breaker bar. It's just a function of how tight it is in there, and it is challenging to do without the adjustable wrench. So we'll do about a 1/8 turn with the breaker bar, and then a 1/8 of a turn with the adjustable wrench. And I do that twice, and that's about it. So now we're going to put the mounting bracket back on, again 10 millimeter socket, and we're going to put it in by hand first and then use the ratchet after it's in. And one thing that definitely made this job a little bit easier for me was having the splash guard off, which I've had off for a couple months just because I've been doing so much work on this vehicle. So the difference in price between the O2 sensor that I got from PartSource and the O2 sensor they sell at Honda is about $100. And in addition, if you get it installed at Honda, they quoted me 1 hour, so it depends on your shop rates, but it could be anywhere from $75 to $150 depending on where you are. And the last thing I'm doing is reconnecting the electrical connector. Now once I had this installed, I had no issues, there were no more codes, and the catalytic converter code went away as well. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.